In this video, we're going to be explaining what the Tales from the SMP actually is and how this whole series will give us tons more storylines. Now before we get into everything, please hit that subscribe button, but with that said, enjoy the video. Now the Tales from the SMP is a series created by Carl Jacobs, obviously one of the members of the Dream SMP. Now what this whole series is basically multiple canon stories which only last one stream. So from the start of the stream to the end of the stream will be the whole story, and at the end, the story will end. Now first we're going to be talking about how you guys, the audience, can interact with these stories and basically help control what is happening. I think this is one of the best ideas for these stories, and how anybody who is watching can basically assist in the story and lead it into a certain direction. Now we're going to be using the first episode, the episode that happened last night, as an example, and this episode was titled The Village That Went Mad. This whole episode was based around the Town of Salem game, where basically there is 3 regular villagers, 2 murderers, 1 doctor, a jester, and an investigator. The villagers are trying to figure out who the murderers are. The murderers come together each night and decide who to murder. The doctor will tell the game master, who is Carl, who they want to be protected that night, basically meaning whoever they choose can't die that night. The jester pretends to be a murderer and their main goal is to be voted out, and the investigator asks the game master, aka Carl, about who has left their house last night, and Carl can only respond with a yes or no answer. If yes, then the person can be either a murderer or a doctor. Now the reason these 2 murderers and 1 doctor have to leave their houses at night is because the 2 murderers have to tell Carl who they want murdered, and the doctor has to tell Carl who they want protected. So only them 2 roles can leave their house, therefore if the answer is yes from Carl, it can only be one of them roles. Now the way the audience was involved in the first episode was by Carl putting a poll up on his Twitter account, and the audience voting for who they think is the murderer. This can then sway the votes of the people actually in the game, so Turbo, Ponk, etc. And if there's a majority, so like 80% to a certain person, then somebody in the game would probably see that and think if everybody thinks they're suspicious, then we can just vote for them. But obviously this is just the first episode, so things going on right now are just a test, and according to Carl, the next episode that's going to be happening will involve the audience in a much more predominant way, and then you guys will be basically involved in the storyline, which I think is just really cool. Now whilst we're on the topic of storylines, what is the storyline for this episode? Well, according to Carl, they went back in time about a few hundred years before the Dream SMP was even founded. Basically, before George and Dream created the server to play with other people, this happened.
Here's my favorite part about tonight's stream. I told them all to get a farmer skin, and I told them they can roleplay as much or as little as they want. Tonight's story takes place hundreds of years before the Dream SMP story as you know it. These are all villagers that have lived in the Dream SMP server before Dream joined it with his friends, okay? Now, how much each of my friends will lean into their characters? That's for them to decide.
Now, although that might sound a bit weird to you right now, here is the cool possibilities that comes with allowing these stories, which only last for 1 stream, which may be like 1 to 5 hours long, to be set in the past, the present, or the future, allows for so many different stories to be created. As I just said, this story was set in the past before everything, but imagine we could get a story in the future where the Dream SMP no longer exists, and it's more of an apocalyptic kind of setting, and then there's some tasks or something to do there. We could also get a present one, which expands onto the storyline with Tommy, Techno, and Dream. We can also get one about the egg and its backstory and where it came from and what it's doing. If you're getting the gist, this kind of allows for more elaboration on the storylines which we already know about. But I also want to talk about the members and the characters in this story and the first episode. As we saw, there was people like Dream, Ponk, Tubbo, Corpse, but according to Carl, they might not be in the next one. We could see Corpse in this one and then Tommy in the next one, etc. Which means these stories can include so many members and even the guests that we've seen on the server as well. So for the next story, we might see Pokimane on again. It just allows for so many more people to join the Dream SMP and add a bit to a storyline. I just think it's a really cool idea, and it's expanding on everything so much. Now to end off this video, Carl, if you are watching this video and you need help with anything, that including creating stories or anything, let me know. I'd love to work with you.